Welcome back. So, if you don't know what tokusatsu is, chances are you actually probably do. Basically, it's a subgenre popularized in Japanese filmmaking that relies on heavy use of practical visual effects. Now, this includes a lot of properties, shows and movies like Godzilla, Ultraman, Kamen Rider, and even Power Rangers derives from this concept. Well, recently, Daddy director Hideaki Anno, known for Shin Godzilla and Evangelion, yes, this Evangelion, no, this scene doesn't make sense out of context. I'm not the weird one, you just gotta watch the show. He has directed Shin Ultraman, and when I mean recently, I mean this film came out in 2022, but I'm reviewing it now because I have free will. It's a gritty remake of the 1966 show about a giant alien superhero who fights evil monsters, aka this guy in a gray and red spandex suit. Now I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. It's a very Monster of the Week formulaic show. And this movie does a good job of adapting that into modern day while still keeping what makes the original Ultraman so special. And the film derives a little bit from the original material. And in this incarnation, Ultraman is an alien from the world of light who, while battling a kaiju on Earth, accidentally kills a man named Shinji Kaminaga. And this guy, Shinji, he's kind of important because he works for this agency called the SSSP, a government faction designed to take down alien threats. So what does Ultraman do? Well, he merges with his body in order to take his appearance somehow, right? He's an alien. He can do stuff, right? So he merges with his body in order to take his appearance and pretends to be him and pretends to go to work and do all this stuff. And through this, since he is an alien and he's got powers, he uses this little device, this one right here, to transform back and forth between Ultraman and human, except the twist is that when he is Ultraman, he can only use that form for a set period of time, which he uses to defeat other monsters, kaijus, whatever. So yeah, that's the basic plot of the show. I mean, that's the basic plot of the movie, and that's pretty much the movie. Because the rest of the movie, and up until the final act, is just Monster of the Week type stuff. You've got Ultraman fighting big giant robots. There's B plots about human drama, right? Stuff like that. There's politics because there's always got to be politics. And there's a woman who eventually becomes a giant woman. Yes, this movie gets really weird at times, especially with its humor. But that's alright, because where the film really stands out is in the final act. Zoffy, who comes from the planet of light and happens to be Ultraman's superior, because, you know, they've got their own civilization and they got their own thing going on over there, has come to Earth to punish Ultraman for merging with a human. Now, the reason he's so mad and angry at Ultraman, Ultraman, why would you do that? Because he fears that one day humans could evolve to the point where they also become giants and happen to defeat them. So he's scared that, hey, you guys are not scary now, but you could be one day, which is kind of an odd thing if you really think about it. It's like being afraid of ants, because you're like, in 12 million years, you're going to be big enough to kill us. So I don't like you now. And so after a whole lot of talking and a lot of alien mumbo jumbo fighting, Zoffy and Ultraman end up in a black hole. This movie gets real weird. And while in this black hole, Ultraman is continuing his whole thing about how he's going to protect Earth because he's Ultraman and he has to protect Earth. And Zoffy's just baffled by Ultraman's actions because he's like, yo, like, why do you care about these people so much? But then he starts to admire his tenacity and care for humanity. And we'll talk more about this in just a little bit, right? But so while they keep fighting, in one final act of heroism, Ultraman does the only thing Ultraman can do. He sacrifices himself as punishment to Zoffy, and what does Earth gain in return? Well, he resurrects the real Shinji, the man whose body he's been taking over, and the film ends with Shinji getting another chance to live. It's a beautifully tragic tale of aliens and humans because, yeah, Ultraman, he comes to Earth, he accidentally kills a guy, he learns what it means to be human. At the end of the day, He ends up sacrificing himself, and the original guy gets to live on in peace. It's poetic, but it's also sad. And what I really like about this film is that, unlike many other films that deals with aliens and them learning about humans and stuff like that, this film is shown through the perspective of an alien in a human body in most cases. And you can see it with infamous stories like E.T., Avatar, Transformers, things like that, where humans and aliens interact. They're usually told from the point of view of a human. And what this film does differently is that, like I said, it's told from the point of view of an alien in a human body. It sounds a little bit weird, but this creative choice actually allows the audience to watch Ultraman slowly understand what it means to be human and why we as a civilization matter. And this is pretty beautiful if you think about it, because we know we're humans, we know what humans are, but for some reason media has this almost glorified view of how humans are, especially when it comes to aliens. And it's interesting because, well, in most of these stories, right, the protagonist usually ends up being a quote-unquote good human, which is what differs this film from many other films, in that while yes, there are good humans in Shin Ultraman also sees a lot of bad stuff. He sees human on human violence, the reality of politics, the morally gray areas that lie within being a person, especially because this man that he takes over is not a kid. He's not somebody who's young, who's impressionable. No, he's a man with a career. He's somebody who's already been in the world a while, and he works in this place that is very morally gray. That's the beauty of the film, because while it is a very campy sci-fi adventure about giant monsters fighting each other and can be very silly and even have some very wonky looking CGI at times, it's also a story of hope, compassion, and what it means to be human, understanding humanity. I mean, Shin Ultraman was literally inside of him. But in all seriousness, I think it's beautiful that over the course of this film, we learn what it means to be human, why people matter, why people do the things they do. And you can see this reflected when Ultraman sacrifices himself, because he realizes, yeah, humanity's not perfect. Earth has a lot of shitty stuff to it, but it's also got a lot of good stuff. And that's the risk he's just willing to take for people. It's good that Zolfi, well, as a villain, he doesn't quite agree with Ultraman to the extent that he has learned. He respects him and his opinion and lets him sacrifice himself in order to resurrect Shinji, which is the ultimate act of heroism one could do. Because Ultraman has his own perceived notion of existing, and so to see him come to our Earth, learn about our race, and still learn to care and care for us and things like that is really beautiful. And one of the biggest questions that Ultraman constantly provokes himself with throughout the film is that why won't people give up? Why won't they surrender, right? You have these giant alien monsters attacking your Earth, so why don't you just give up? What's the purpose, right? And he comes to the realization that they just can't. They simply cannot. They have this desire to protect their planet, and so they can't give up. So therefore he can't give up, and now he's part of the fight against those aliens, evil aliens. Look, I think the most important message is that if Ultraman can learn to care about people, why can't we as a civilization? It's a shitty world we live in. It's not rainbows and sunshine or anything like that, but there's also a lot of good to it. And so I think if a film about this giant robot gray spandex alien can learn about society and civilization, I think we can too. As stated in Everything Everywhere All at Once, choose kindness. It's not that hard. You know, we don't have to agree with each other's opinions, but as long as we respect one another, then I think that's all right. So that's the message of the story, even if he is just a giant man in a gray and red spandex. But as per usual, thank you, and thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch me talk about this weirdly seductive film. But that's it for Shin Ultraman. Go check it out. I think you'll like it. It's a fun film. You don't have to take it too seriously, or you can if you really choose to. But check it out. Why not? And until next time, see ya.